Sairam, everyone. This is a topic that is very near and dear to my heart. It is financial literacy and awareness for women. So let's get into understanding what Swami says about money. Swami says money comes and goes, morality comes and grows. So this is something we're always going to hold on us as Swami's principle in our lives. But even with this, money comes and goes, I want to encourage every woman here to understand what is it that's coming and going and how are we managing our money. Moving forward with a couple more Swami's quotes. Satya Sai Baba emphasizes the importance of earning ethical and moral means and advocating a balance between material wealth and spiritual well-being. Swami says, instead of viewing money as the ultimate goal, we need to focus on developing virtues that would lead happiness and a meaningful life. So I want to start out with a question, and I'm encouraging anyone here to please chime in. I was doing some statistical review on finances, and I was looking at, in the US, I want to get some answers from you. How many families in the US feel financial stress? I see Harsha saying 65%, Prashanti 75%, Vidya 50, Bhavana 25, Vishwarupa 90 to 99. Oh, that's wonderful. 45% SSC group 2, 85, 70, 100% Meenakshi. That's wonderful. I guess it's a perceptive thing, right? So let's go to what the market survey says. So the market survey says, Market Watch, 88% of families in the US feel financial stress. It is quite alarming if you think about it. If it's almost 9 out of 10 families in the United States have financial stress. And 65% of those families are in big financial stress. And what that means is they're either living paycheck to paycheck or they're not living paycheck to paycheck and they're actually in deficit. CNN is another market research has said 71% of American families have significant financial stress. And American Psychological Association says 72%. Now, these are some really alarming numbers if you think about it, saying 7 out of our 10 neighbors can be financially stressed. And so let's look at one more research. I wanted to do one more research to understand how many women in the US feel financial stress, and which is very relevant to our topic. So I'm opening up the chat again to get an answer on how many women feel this financial stress. Sharada, 90%, Vidya, 90%. Wonderful. Vishwarupa, 90%. Wonderful. 80%. Very good. These are actually very good answers. From the women's side, CNBC reports 93% of women identify money as the significant stress factor. And I think this is very, very important for every woman here on our call to understand that as much as we think we're okay, there'll come a time where this becomes very important to us. So the market also goes ahead and says, why is it a significant financial stress for women? So the few key pointers that the market research showed was women just lack the awareness of financial literacy. And we'll go through, when I have that underlined, we'll go through in detail what that means. Second is women are focused in their lives on family responsibilities, kids' responsibilities. They play a giver or a main giver in the family side of it, for which they ignore or they don't have the time to put in the financial side of it. Third reason why is dependency on the spouse or significant other. We are so used to having either our spouse take the financial decisions that we take a step back and we do the home side of it. So that's another reason why women do not put time in the financial literacy, and then not creating an emergency plan. This is actually very near and dear to me, dear sisters, is I've personally seen a very dear friend of mine unfortunately losing a husband and having no clue about it. So I feel extremely passionate about giving this advice to everyone and personally taking the advice myself. And the last reason why women feel significant stress factor is statistics shows that women have a lifelong expectancy longer than men. So what that means is we are now in a position where we have to have financial resources to sustain us longer. So knowing that is very important today. So we'll go into understanding what is financial literacy? What does that mean? And how do I start? So as we all educate our children, we all go through and say, children, you got to go education, education. I think as women, we have to first say, where are we on financial literacy? And financial literacy is nothing but making informed decisions about managing money. It is understanding how do we handle money, what is our income, what is our expense. Financial literacy is just a very fancy word of just understanding how you manage your own money. So we're going to look at what are the key aspects. What do we do to make sure we're financially literate? So we have a few things like budgeting. Budgeting is to keep track of our income and expenses. That's one, what is a budget? Saving. Okay, now I have so much income. What am I saving for? So, am I saving for a retirement? Am I saving for a house? So that's saving comes in terms of what's our goal as a house. Investing. Once you figure out what is your budget and how much you've saved, what do you do with that money? Can you invest it somewhere? How do I keep myself secure? Where do I put my money to get some kind of return for myself? Borrowing is just to understand what is my current status of my debt? Do I have debt on my house? Do I have debt on something else? What are my payments that I need to do? Credit. When I initially came to the US, I was so happy about swiping the card, and that was the first time I ever had a credit card. But understanding what happens when you swipe that card, what is the payment you need to make? Where do you make the payment, etc. And then just financial planning is to achieve your long-term and short-term goals. It's very important for us to always think about our goals. So I think this is a little bit of a repeat, but I'm going to still emphasize that financial literacy is very important for us to make informed decisions. We as women need to make sound financial decisions to understand what is it that's impacting my life today, my family today, and how can I make better decisions to make sure we have a secured future tomorrow. Avoiding financial hardship. This is a dear topic as the economy goes up and down. We understand the job market goes up and down is to help avoid financial distress and build a security blanket, in a sense, is to have that buffer to make sure we are able to meet any emergency that comes on us. Achieving financial independence. Financial independence is very different for a lot of people. For some people, financial independence is, hey, I wish to have a certain amount of money in the bank and earn interest, and that's financial independence for me. For some other people, it could be, I could be a debt-free person. I don't want to have a mortgage. I don't want to have a credit card loan. That's financial independence. I would urge every single person of you to figure out what is financial independence for you. What do you think? If you sleep at night well, you don't have to worry about anything and you get up relaxed. That's rule of thumb is for anyone to decide what is right for you in your life. Sisters, I'm also passionate about protecting oneself from scams and fraud. As much as we are aware or we are always sharp about everything, Please keep in mind, do not share any of your financial information to anybody texting you or calling you and giving you a threat against if you don't make a payment, something will happen. Me being in the public accounting world, I personally have received a phone call saying, I'm an IRS agent asking money from you. And I can assure you, I have been working in this field for 17 years now. IRS never calls anybody. They only send letters through paper. IRS has a strict and obligation that they never contact taxpayers through the phone. So please save yourselves or make sure you're alert that if anybody is calling you or scamming you, you report that immediately to the police. And then ultimately, financial literacy is important so we build a stronger economy. As we are all secure in finances, in our obligations, we contribute more to the economy. More than that, we can even contribute for charity. We can do what we want that makes our lives fulfilled. And that is very important part for every woman on, not only on this call, but everywhere around. In a sense, financial literacy is about developing the skills and knowledge to manage money effectively and make sound financial decisions. So we'll go through every single step saying, where do I start? What do I do? How do I go about this? And I'm hoping to empower you to do the same in your lives after this presentation. So the first thing that anyone and everyone should do is figure out, what is your budget? What is it that you need in your lives today that you need to understand what's coming in and what's going out? So a budget is a spending plan that outlines how much money you earn and how much expenses you have. And then you then have to figure out a purpose. A budget helps you plan your spending, identify your overspending, or do you have a buffer? And the key components that you have to think about is, what is my estimated income? What is my expense? And what do I need to do to save a certain amount? Why is this beneficial? Why is a budget beneficial? Is it empowers you to not overspend. It empowers you to manage your debt. It makes you stronger to save for your future, and it makes informed financial decisions. So there's some more of types of budgets, and I'm more focused on individuals and families and not business and governments. So if you all know, we probably you have to also remember this budget is just not from an individual standpoint. It's also done at your municipal state level or your municipal city level. It's done at the state budget. And if you know what's happening now, we're expecting a new tax plan. This is what's been debated even at the federal Congress level, is how do we manage the US budget? So budget can go from individual households up to the government. So this is something that everybody should be aware of. Dear sisters, I do want to let you know this is a rule of thumb that the economists have come about. It can change and vary from family to family. So please, this is just a general rule of thumb that I'm helping you with. So what is a good budget, or what is a budget that I can start with? So economists have come about this 50, 30, and 20 rule. What is this 50, 30, and 20 rule? 50% of your income should go on your needs. 30% of your income should go towards retirement or towards your savings. And 20% is your mad money, or it's your wants. So needs, wants, and savings. And I do want to take a minute here to say this is exactly what SSC was teaching my children, is ceiling on desires, needs, and wants. And it's so funny that any topic you pick, it's Swami's principles and Swami's teachings are all around it. And it just dawned on me, hey, we were teaching kids to be needs, wants, and, ceiling on desires. That exactly is the concept here, is even with your finances, you can apply Swami's principles of needs, wants, and ceiling on desires. So we will go a little bit more into where do I start? Now that Shilpa, you have talked to us about financial literacy and budget and what do I need to do to start? And I want everybody to be empowered to take a piece of paper and say, define your goal. What is it that makes you strive towards? Is what is your long term and what is your short term goal? And we'll go into a little bit more. I've put a few examples on what a long term and short term goal is. So we'll go into that a little bit more. So the step one would be is, what is your goal? What is it that drives you to do something? And then step two would be, what is my income? Is just figuring out what is coming into my house today. And it can be in form of paycheck, it can be a business, social security, etc. Third step is identify your expenses. What are my expenses? What are the obligations that I have today? What do I need to pay? What is it that if I don't pay today, I'll have somebody knocking on my door tomorrow? Step four, once you figure that out, compare yourself to the 50-30-20 rule and see, where are you? Are you balanced? Are you more in one area? Do you need to cut down in one area? And then step five, with what you save, can you do what can I do with my saving? Where can I put that money to get a really good financial outcome for me and my family later in my life? And six, track your spending and compare your budget. Now, step six, one thing I will encourage everyone is, once you set a budget, that's temporary because life changes. I would say everybody has to look at their budget once in 3 to 5 years because our priorities change, our current needs change. I can remember when my twin boys were going into daycare, my budget then is significantly different than my budget today. When I stopped daycare expenses, I felt I gave myself a boost. So it's important for all of us to understand that a budget is only at a period of time. It is at a time today, it works today for the next 3 years or 5 years. If you're looking at after 5 years, readdress, sit back and see, what can I do differently? Or what I did then, what did the lessons learned? What can I do differently then? Okay. So we're going into more of defining a goal. What is a goal? What are some, and these are very general examples I have out here, is to define what is your long-term goal? What is your short-term goal? For many people, it could be saving to buy a home in the US or anywhere, sorry. The other one would be saving for kids' college education, saving for a retirement. Remember, the reason why you say it's a long-term goal is you have time to build it up. You have time to make that decision and put that money in there. Saving by using an investment strategy. Goal to achieve financial freedom. Remember, financial freedom for each person can be very different. And saving for charity. If you want to be a philanthropist and you want to be able to contribute to the society for any social causes or something that's very near and dear for you, that's where you start saving today to enable you to be able to reach that goal for yourself. So those are all usually termed as long-term goals to help you get to that place. Short-term goals. What are my short-term goals? Is, hey, I would like to take a vacation this year and go and visit Puttaparthi, or I would like to take a vacation and go home and see my parents. Building an emergency fund. Dear sisters, this is one thing that's very important for all of us, is building an emergency fund. In recent surveys, in recent US economy, it is recommended that each family at least have a 6-month buffer of emergency fund. What does that mean? Is once you create we will go through creating a budget. You will see once you create your monthly expense, it is prudent to keep at least 6 times that monthly expense as an emergency fund. Because today it almost takes that long or longer, 6 months to a year, to find another job. So if you are a family with a single family earner and a breadwinner, it is important for you to understand to keep at least 6 months to pay your bills and to ensure that you have something that can carry you till then. Saving for a luxury item. This is a very wants, needs, individual preferences. Those are something you would plan for to do that. And saving in case of job loss, which is what I just said, is a 6-month reserve is a recommended. Goals can change, so address your goals every 5 to 10 years, and setting a realistic and achievable expectations and goals is very important per family. So let's figure out what is it your income? How do I figure out what my income is? This is where I would urge every woman here to go and figure out what is the source of income to your house. Is it through a job, which I get paycheck? Do I get child support? Do I have seasonal work, which results in, project-oriented work? Do I get social security income? Do I get retirement income? So this is where each and every individual of you will have to figure out what is it that's coming into your house. So in this example, I have assumed one person earner or one person earner with paychecks coming in bi-weekly. So you will see in 1 month, there's two, if it's a bi-weekly or half monthly, normally you get 2 paychecks. So paycheck 1 was about $1,500. Paycheck 2 is another $1,500. And keep in mind, this $1,500, when it comes through a paycheck from a company or corporate setting, it's already gone through and reduced for federal withholding taxes, the federal unemployment taxes, state unemployment, all the taxes, social security taxes has already been withheld and paid by an employer. So this is your net income coming into the house. So in this scenario, we have $3,000 of income coming in home. Next is to figure out what is your expense. And when we're talking about expenses, this is where a concept of fixed expense and variable expense comes about. What is fixed and variable? So fixed is something, regardless of how many people are in the house, the expense does not change. For example, when you have a home and you have a mortgage, it doesn't matter if in the house there's 4 people living, 6 people living, or 2 people living, the rent expense or your mortgage expense will not change. That is called fixed. They are not going to change based on the number of people in the house. So when you go through and figure out what are my expenses, you're going to say, I have a fixed rent or mortgage expense of $1,400, as in this example. I have to pay my cell phone, which is about $100. And then I have some car insurance, that's $200. Now, if you look at variable expenses, this is where the amounts change based on the number of people. If you have 6 people in your family, your grocery bill is going to be a lot larger than a family of 2 or 4 people. So it's a very linear relationship between more people, more expense, less people, less expense. So if you think about groceries, this is a variable expense. Depending on how many people are there, your expense can go higher or can go lower. Eating out. This is where you want to go to a restaurant and have a meal. If you go 1 time, it's a X number of dollars. If you go 5 times, it's an X number of dollars. So these are variable expenses. Clothes, gas, and gifts. So if you look at it, most of these have a discretionary aspect to it. What that means is you can choose how high or low your variable expense is. But there is no discretionary in the fixed expense. That's fixed. You can't do anything to change it. So when you need to identify your expenses, I would like you to sit back and say, what is it that I need to pay every month that I don't have a option not to? So you come across, and as in this example, you look at, I had rent of 1,400, I had cell phone, I had, car insurance, utilities, my variable expenses. So the total expenses in this example is $2,700. So then comes step 4 is to figure out, okay, I had income of 3,000 and expenses of 2,700. I now have a surplus of 300. This is a good. But if you think about, now we're going to stop ourselves and say, did I come close to my 50-30-20 rule? And if you think about what that 20% was, 20% was supposed to be savings. Now, please keep in mind, this is a general guide. This is not anything specific. And if you look at the example that we ran about, the savings was just $300 out of 3,000. That's only 10%. So now you sit back and say, what is it in that list that I could have done differently to achieve my savings goal? And the last step, which is step 6, is stick to it. And this is the hardest piece of all the steps is, making a budget and sticking to it. Very similar to, I would say, my husband would say, my exercise plan. I make plans, but I need to stick to it. So very similar is a financial exercise plan. I do want to move into one topic of creating an emergency plan. And this is something that every woman in this call needs to, and I sincerely request you to go back and think about it, is what is my emergency plan? And I already talked a little bit about this, which is having a 3 to 6 month reserve. This is important because of, if we in this economy, if we experience a job loss, or if we experience an inability to work due to disability, what do I need to do? How do I cover my expenses? How do I manage my house? How do I still meet my objectives of sending my children to college? Or any of those decisions are very important, and it's good to think about them now then versus being in that situation and then retrogressively thinking about it. Unexpected home expenses, vehicle replacement, medical or dental emergency, and we are all mortals at the end of the day, death or bereavement related expenses. These are very important to think about today is, if some of these happens to us, what do I need to do to help my family? Or what can I do to make sure my family does not feel financial distress? Then I would also urge each family to create a list of things that you could do in each of these major emergencies. Is, what if something happens? What do I need to do? Where do I start? Who do I call, etc.? So one is definitely, as we talked about, you need to keep your budget current every 3 to 5 years and say, this is where I am today in budget. And always think about, what if this doesn't come by? What can I remove to still keep myself secure? Apply for dental, vision, health insurance through Medicare, Medicaid. Eliminate or reduce non-essential expenses. Sisters, I could tell you that this year when I went, last December when I went to India, I helped create a budget for my own parents. Not that they are financially distressed, is because my dad retired as a doctor, and he was a self-employed doctor, and he retired just before COVID. And it's important even for parents' generation to understand, what can they do to be financially independent. As you all know, all of us want to be independent and don't rely on our children, and that's very true even for our parents' generation. And so they were always worried about, are we good? Are we okay? But they did not know where to start. So I said, your daughter is in this field. Let me help you. So when we created a plan to figure out what was their monthly expense coming in, what is their expenses they have. And they felt so good after that, saying, oh, I'm okay. I'm all right. I don't have to worry about it. Even though they knew that they were okay, but seeing it in numbers, seeing it in a plan, And I was able to say, hey, you're already there. How about investing? And it got them so excited, saying, oh, even in this age, even in when I'm not working, I can still do stuff to make our lives better. And that is an empowerment that I was very excited to see with my parents. And I urge every single one of you to do that, because it, even being financially independent and being financially sound, is one of the best things you can give to yourself and to your children and to your family. So, this apply for government assistance such as unemployment, that is in case of a job loss, identify necessary resources and consolidate debt. So these are the things you can do in each of the emergency. Now, I do want to also emphasize that I would request everyone here to understand, where is your bank account, or if your spouse is the provider, what is the bank account that he or she is using? What is the login information? And this is very important, because most of us know we can swipe our credit card, but credit card to a bank account is very significantly different things. Credit cards go in one different provider, bank account is a completely different provider. So knowing where the bank is, or knowing where your bank financial money is in which bank, is a very important concept for every woman here. Also understanding, where is our credit card accounts? What is it? Which provider gives us that? How do I make the payment from the bank account to the credit card account? It's probably already set up, but just understanding that and understanding the login information. As much as we all have to secure our usernames and passwords, we need to at least share that information between couples to understand, where are you going to do that? I know you have an app. What is your phone password? How do I get into your phone if something happens? So this is something that's very much overlooked. And if I told you about my friend having an issue, this was exactly the problem she had. She did not know how to get into her ex-husband's phone. That just was a whole different thing for her to just get into his phone and understand which app he's using, let alone figuring out which bank account. So I urge everyone to make a list of all the accounts you have in use. What are the information? What is the login? What is the password? What are your security questions? As much as we go over and over and making us so secure, please know what your spouse is secured for. And that is one thing that I would urge everyone here. Create a will. Now, I'm urging every family to think about this, because in the US, when one person passes, the states automatically have a process called as a probate process. What that means is all your assets go into the state-defined steps of going through and figuring out, who are your creditors, who are your beneficiaries, where does your property go, who has the first lien on your property. So by having a will, you've taken out the probate process, which is the most recommended way to go, because you would think that the state process should be free. It's actually very expensive to go through the probate process. From a very average statistical, it could range anywhere from $15,000 to $30,000. That is, $15,000 to $30,000 of your saved money could be potentially used for the probate process to determine where your money should go. Take that decision making out of the state. Make sure you know who it goes to. I mean, most of us will go to our family, define that, put that in paper, and it's very important to have that ready. And I can tell you, we've already had a will done a few years ago, because it is not something where we're worried about it, but we want to make sure that what we earn goes to the people or to the organizations we want it to go. Let the state not decide where it needs to go. And one thing to note is if you have a will, please do not lock it in the locker, because when one person passes, automatically any bank lockers, everything goes on a lockdown to see what the will decided to say what they need to do. So it's very important for you to not keep your will in your locker, because you just lost the purpose of making a will. Keep the will in a cupboard or something in your house where it's not locked, that somebody can go through and find it. You can, if you want, hide it under a few your clothes, or you don't want others to see. Make sure it's not in a safe. Even if you have a safe in the house, please don't keep it in your safe or in a locker deposit in the bank, because these things get locked down and you won't be able to access that. And then at the end of the day, review and adjust your plan depending on your life circumstances. So this is one more thing that people can do, is create a living trust. And most of the time, when you go to a lawyer to do a will, they automatically suggest you a living trust. And this is very important, as normally when you pass, or when you're looking at how do I do a succession planning of my financial assets, they look at tax benefits to see how can you share your property to your next generation with the best tax benefit. So living a revocable living trust can certainly help you with that. And it also, you define today how your assets needs to be distributed. One thing I haven't touched about in creating a will and a living trust is they also will also address what are your medical decisions that you need to make. For example, if unfortunately you're in an accident or anything happens and you're in a state of in the hospital, do you want to have a vegetative state, or do you want to not? And who do you want to assign to be able to take medical decisions for you? Now, I have minor children. I don't think they're emotionally capable. This is where I would encourage everyone to think about who would be more emotionally logical to make those decisions for you. And if you go through a lawyer, if you go through a proper experienced tax lawyer, they will help you through all of this to create a plan. So in any case, please consult a lawyer in this regard. So this is the last one I have for my presentation today. I'm hoping that I've been able to share how you can create a budget, how you can figure out where your 50-30-20 plan is, how can you do an emergency plan. Just write down in a small piece of paper what you can do for your retirement planning. So with this, I'm going to conclude my presentation and open it up for questions. Sairam.
Sairam Ji, Shilpa, thank you so much for this wonderful presentation. I think you touched upon all the wonderful topics, how to do it proactively, how to do it as we go on to life, and also plan for the future. Thank you so much. And the real wealth is love, grace, and blessings of the Lord. Only you acquire this wealth, it'll never leave you. I love this last quote that you have. Sisters, please do take time to share any questions that you have, or any
As
questions
a
for
retired
Shilpa?
person, is it important to put money, invest into Roth IRA each year, or is it one-time done deal?
Roth IRA is a contribution that is allowed for each person every year. And if your financial position allows you to do so, absolutely do that. And I believe the 2024 contribution was 7,000. And if you're over 50 or 50, I believe it's 8,000 per year. It is one of the best investments you can do for yourself. Now, studies have shown that if you do about $7,000 each year, in about 30 years, that $7,000 can creep over $1 million. Now, keep in mind, those studies kind of show when you're initially earning in your earlier years and you're investing it. But at any given point of time, if you can invest for your future and you're allowed to do that in your financial situation, you absolutely must do that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sister Shilpa. I think, Sister Shilpa, there was another question about, you said the locker cannot be opened by anyone once they pass away. Sister Mona wanted to know if even it's also the spouse, even the spouse is not allowed to get to the locker.
I can look at that one. I do know that they go into a lockdown they go into basically the reason why they do that is if, for example, sister, that very example is if the other spouse takes something that was against the will, was against the distribution of the person deceased. Although, we there are many circumstances, and I'm extremely generalizing this concept. I would say that it's best not to have if you want to keep your original will there, keep a copy of it outside. But even from a spouse perspective, how I have understood it so far, and things could have changed, the locker will go on a lockdown.
Sure. Okay. One of the sisters is asking if there are any templates that you recommend for managing our finances, managing, our life decisions.
So this is where there's a lot of tools out there, sisters. There's a lot of tools, and a lot of people provide that. I personally feel they're a little bit more complicated, and we need to simplify it. What I would recommend is the example that I put out there is just go through and put your income, expense, and add that up. One more thing that I would like to encourage everyone to do is, and which is I personally do it, is after a year has gone by, depending on who is very good in Excel, go through your entire credit card statements for the year and see what is it that is going through my card. And believe it or not, I have found many subscription charges that we did once time, but it's continuously getting charged in my account, and none of us are using it. Call them and say no. It may be $10, it may be $20, it may be $30 a month, but when you go from month to month to month to month, that can add up to a lot of amount. I'm not going to say one Excel template out there is better than the other. There's very many of them. But if you are not someone who's very good in Excel, make it simple and start. But I do know there are quite a few templates out there.
Sure. And there is a question from Sister Vishwarupa of, do you have any suggestions of which banks are helpful to set up an irrevocable living trust?
The irrevocable living trust is not going through a bank. It's only on a piece of paper, they set up the trust. And what you do is, this is what we have done. We have a living trust for our family. And what you do when you have your living trust is, when you have a bank account, instead of saying the beneficiary of that bank account is your spouse or your children, you say the beneficiary of that bank account is your trust. And that is a good plan, because your retirement savings, you will have options to choose who your beneficiaries. I have chosen that my trust, it goes to my trust, because the decision making, I don't want to leave it out there for the Fidelity account or the Schwab account to do who it needs to go to. I want it to go to the trust, and I have defined in the trust, if something happens to me tomorrow, my kids are very young, how are their expenses going to be treated? Now, when they're 25, I don't want all the money to go to them and they spend it all. I've set a distribution strategy saying when they're 25, they'll get just enough maybe to start out their life, maybe to buy just to put a down payment of their house. When they're 40, if they have still not been doing well, then they'll give a certain amount of check. So in that, it gives time even for my money to grow at that time. So from an irrevocable trust, it's not something set up in a bank. You set it up with a lawyer and you assign your bank to it.
Sure.
I hope that answers.
Basically, there's some attorneys who can assist us if we want. Perfect. And Shilpa, there's a question from Sister Majni of, when do we stop investing in Roth IRA?
You pretty much can invest till the end. There is no restriction on when you can stop investing. Every person is allowed to invest up to $7,000. There are some income limitations for each set by the federal government, and they change year to year. There is no limit to when you have to stop.
Sure. And Sister Harsha is asking if how to handle pension eligibility from country outside USA. Are there any resources?
So this is where I think you have to understand that the US is a worldwide regime. So if you are a US citizen or a resident who has to pay US taxes, you are going to be taxed on a worldwide regime. Now, this is getting a little into tax, but since we talked about it, let's think about it. Is if I have income in India with my resources right now, I have to report that income not only in India but in the US. But if you're in India and you're an Indian citizen and you only have Indian taxes, you're only liable for the income in India. So that's where the differentiation comes. I'm not sure if the sister who's asking is residing in the US or residing in India. So it's a very hard one to answer. It all depends on your tax residency.
She's residing in the United States.
Okay, so if you're residing in the United States, then you are eligible for a worldwide taxation. And how to manage your retirement income, I strongly suggest you to talk to where your retirement income is. They have people who can suggest some strategies, or go and talk to a financial planner, because each individual's person's need is very different of why they need their money. So I hate to put a generalized statement here which does not match your family needs.
This is Rukmini from Columbus. I do have one question regarding taxes and also financial advice. I have not been able to find a tax person who's also a financial advisor. And typically, when I go to both of them separately, and I see you're smiling, so you know what I'm talking about, it's not easy. So, what am I looking for in a tax person or a financial advisor that would kind of collaborate? They would be on the same page where my goals are?
So that's a very, I'm a tax person, so I hate to give financial advice too. So that you hit the absolute crux of it. And the reason because is we're looking at it in two different ways. This person is trying to figure out what is your best tax strategy today and tomorrow. But your financial person is figuring out what can I do to get the best financial growth for you, which can be very contradictory if you think about it, right? And then just from talking through the other questions is Roth IRA versus traditional IRA, your regular 401k versus your traditional 401k. The reason why there are so many different accounts is because when you put their money in those accounts, they translate to different tax treatments when it comes to your tax return. For Roth IRA, if you put your money in your Roth IRA, any growth, any kind of dividend income, any kind of interest income in those accounts are tax deferred. Tax deferred means it's not going to be taxed today. It's going to be taxed when you retire. That is why when you're looking at younger people, you're encouraging them to do Roth IRAs as much as possible because you won't be paying the taxes today. But if you put it in a traditional IRA because or an IRA brokerage IRA because your income limit is higher, as your account is earning money, you're paying taxes today. So that's why it becomes very hard when you're looking at one person to give you the best tax advice and the financial advice. There is a clash in both of that. And what I would recommend, sisters, if you're looking for something like that is, I know you said you already reached out to two different people, is get their input, come back home and say, what did this person say and what did this person say, and see if that works for you. And if it doesn't, try suggesting a call to have everybody out there saying, this is my view of what I want my financial investments to be. Does that match with my current tax situation?
There is a question by Sister Bindu about recommending Fidelity, Merrill, or Schwab's.
Yes. I personally don't recommend any one of them, because here is the reason is you have to understand what is their underlying fees. Most of these places, what they do is they try and will take a fees out of either you're investing every time or you're withdrawing money. My personal experience, I've seen Vanguard being one of the best ones where the fees are lower. But then again, I also, from my work, I have Fidelity, I have other accounts as well. So sometimes you may not have a choice based on your employer chosen, but I would recommend you looking at the fees. How are they charging you the fees? That would be a key decision making to pick the company that way you're going to invest.